And how
How you
does she
doing?
look? I'm good. How does she look? He just got his hair done.
Right?
You look
Perfect.
beautiful, by the way. I
Oh, that's nice.
no, but I mean it though. I'm not just sucking up to you as a huge fan, and a fan of you for many, many moons. And it's really cool.
Thank
It's like
you.
everybody I've talked to that has either worked with you or knows you. My friend Justine Marino, she's a comic that I work with a lot. And she had a couple runs with you, and I think did some shows with you. I don't know if it was recently but when I told her I was doing this, because it's funny, she actually did. We did like a prayer on the podcast. I guess it
Okay.
was about it within the year.
Yeah.
Because she's a huge Madonna fan, and then she said, "Who's doing Immaculate Collection?" And I told her it was you, and she was first she was mad that she wasn't doing it, and then she was like, "No, I get it."
Okay, good. I took her gig.
Sure, but this is the thing, we're in it now,
Right.
and I'm should I hold on before we even get into the Madonna stuff. Just please
Okay.
promote away anything you want to promote for us.
Please, okay, please come see me on tour, the Kathy Griffin My Life on the PTSD List tour. And you guys, it's been 7 years since I've been allowed to tour because of the Trump photo scandal where I'm holding the decapitated Trump head. And I was on the no-fly list and investigated by the Department of Justice and one thing after another. And so I talk about not that. I actually don't even talk about Trump in my new show, but I do talk about PTSD because I feel like you got to talk about the dark stuff if you're going to talk about the light stuff. And I talk about everything from cancer to addiction, but lots of celebrity gossip. In fact, I have a story about going to the Madonna concert, this current tour, with Sia, Lunel, Paris Hilton, Nia Vardalos from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And we all went, and this is really embarrassing to say, but we actually left early because of Madonna's no air conditioning policy.
What?
I know it's unacceptable. I'm a bad gay man. I'm losing my gay man card.
No.
We
First of all,
were sweating, dripping, sweating. And even Paris, who was wearing very little clothing. I just want to go on record. You can look this up. Paris was barely dressed. And she turned to me and she's like, sis, oh my God.
We got to go.
Too hot. And then I see Sia and she's wearing a backless dress. And I'm like, are you doing okay? And I touch the back of her. I touch her skin and it's just wet. And then Lunel is in like head to toe Fendi, but like sweatery stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, we're going to lose her. She's going to pass out. And this is very embarrassing at the ripe age of 64. But we actually took a party van there. So we had to leave in shame early because Randy Griffin here, we were all literally getting overheated. And then Rosie O'Donnell told me that Madonna has a lifelong policy of no air conditioning, even in her home. So I thought it was just broken at the forum that night or the SoFi. I didn't know. So explain this. By the way, come see me on tour. Go to kathygriffin.com. I'm in... Gosh, where am I? I'm in Oklahoma City this weekend, San Antonio. I'm playing beautiful theaters. I played Carnegie Hall 2 weeks ago, and I literally kissed the stage at the end of the show. And so the audiences have been outstanding, and I'm just glad to be off the no-fly list and back touring where I belong. Now, talk to me about Madonna's air conditioning issue and how can I be prepared? Because I don't ever want to have to leave a Madonna show early.
So I completely understand why. I think it's ridiculous she does it for the entire show. I can understand in her house. I can understand in the recording studios because an air conditioner will dry out your vocal cords. It's like
I figured. It was
all voice. And Madonna, no disrespect to, arguably the queen of pop.
Yes.
Her voice isn't what is drawing us in. So what she has is what she has. And she needs every bit of juiciness on those vocal cords to hit the high notes in La Isla Bonita. I have a question. I got like 9 questions out of everything you just said. Okay. Who
Okay.
starts the text chain for that groupling of people? Because that was, I'm surprised you didn't say former President Jimmy Carter's
Right?
going.
We got
We've
him out of
got,
hospice. No, I mean, I'm a text chain fiend.
yeah,
And one of the things that I do just because it's pure evil and it makes me laugh is I like to add Sharon Stone randomly to text chains.
sure.
So Sharon Stone, the movie star, who is quite private in her real life, is probably going to come to my house and absolutely strangle me one day because I think I have her on 7 text chains of people she's never met. And so the funny thing is, every so often she'll chime in. So I was using the text chain to try to get her to come to Madonna with us. And instead she was side texting me going, who are these people? And so I'm like, well, if you don't know who Paris Hilton is, Sharon, then you're the problem. And then she was like, oh, I love Paris. She's adorable.
She's basically you for the beginning portion of the movie Casino. She's like the fun version before the cocaine destroys her life. She's just a fun social life and sexy. Yes.
Right. And so I try to make it real, whether it's real or not. And so no, she did not come with us that night, but I love Lunel. And so I saw her like one of the last times I did the Jimmy Kimmel show. And I thought, I don't hang out with Lunel enough. And if you don't know who she played the prostitute in Borat.
Oh, I know. I'm very close with Lunel. Very, very close with her.
I love her. I love her. And so I have these parties at my house that I call salon parties. And it's either a lunch or dinner. And it's usually to celebrate somebody. Well, every time there's a guest of honor. And I thought, let me have a salon for Lunel. So I had one for Lunel and her daughters came and I invited a nice little mix of ladies. And this one was ladies only, which pissed her off, of course. And so we just have stayed buds because when I have these salon parties, there's no phones allowed at the table and I'm very strict. And I don't want to hear about your fucking kids. They could call me from school. They're all grown. Shut up. Put your phone down. And somebody actually had the nerve to say, but I'm bidding for something on eBay. And I'm like, okay, phone down. And so what happens is these conversations happen. And guess what? When you put your phone away for a couple of hours, you actually get to know people. Sure. And I only allow one person to speak at a time. So everyone is heard. So I'll put an introvert next to an extrovert. And I place everybody at the table in a way where everybody gets to say something, be heard. Sometimes there's a topic, sometimes there's not. And that's, Sia famously is so private. She wears a wig that covers her entire face except for her lips. And so Sia shows up at these. And then, of course, because I'm a pain in the ass, I put her on the spot and I make her sing a cappella. So she'll usually belt out something. And she really hits those nice notes, baby. Like she's the real deal. And then Nia Vardalos, I've just known forever. And she's, an Oscar nominee. And she's got a woman who's got a franchise of movies, which is unusual. So anyway, and Paris Hilton finally knows that my jokes aren't meant to hurt her. They're just meant to make people laugh. And so she and I have become friends. And Paris is 40 now and she's got 2 kids. And she still lets me call her every name in the book. And that's my kind of gal. And so Rosie O'Donnell will show up at one and then all bets are off. You never know who's going to say what. And she and Madonna go way back. So, Rosie is able to speak to Madonna, in a way that we couldn't. I've never even met Madonna, but I love their friendship, and Rosie flew all the way to England to see Madonna's opening night. And, everybody loves them together in a league of their own. And when Madonna used to go on the Rosie O'Donnell talk show. So anyway, this one was very female centric, but I did think we really should have had, some dudes with us, but we got the girls together and we went and then we sat there and then we just started melting. I mean, my eyelash was melting off my face onto my fucking cheek. Yeah. It was humiliating.
Sure.
And then to show we had some class, even though we left the Madonna concert early, which was a mistake we shouldn't have because the show was amazing. But we did, as long as we were in Inglewood because she played the Forum here in Los Angeles, we did take the party van to Randy's Donuts, and we did console ourselves by getting
couple
Randy's
bear claws.
Donuts.
Yeah.
And then we drove to LAX, the airport, the Los Angeles airport, to drop off Lunel because she had a double the next night, Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And that's how our night ended.
What a incredible you literally told me how it all came together. So just in case anybody was wondering how this friendship started. I love it. Yep. And also, Sharon, go see Madonna. Mrs. Stone, come on.
Come on, Stoney. Go see Madonna. I'm sure she knows Madonna. Like, I'm sure they've crossed paths and all that stuff. But if, when in doubt, I say throw a Sharon Stone on a text chain.
But also, I love that, because we're going to talk about controversy because Madonna is so, I would never say engraved in it, but like, everything about Madonna, is in your face. She's in control of it. She knows what she's doing. Yeah, and you also too. Like, we'll get into all of that, and I'm glad that you're like really getting back out there, because in the Carnegie Hall, congratulations, probably one of the most famous venues, if not the most famous venue in the world, next to, I think, the Garden and Carnegie. All New York has is just the two biggest. Maybe the Acropolis. The Acropolis
someday,
something like that. But yeah, it's almost perfect. It's apropos that you're coming on to do this, because this isn't just a singular record about Madonna. This is what she's doing on tour now. This is everything. This is everything that she's worked for up until, and this is what's so crazy. This record, Immaculate Collection, came out in 1990, and it is 17, 18 hits, massive hits.
Hit after hit. It's a ballad. It's a protest song. It's a rock and roll song. It's a pop song. It's one after another. And just the number of hits, and also songs that are meaningful. They're written in a way that's meaningful. They touch a part of your life. You can't help but go back to where you were when this one came out, or when this song came out. And like when you're talking about Like a Prayer, I know the director of that video very well, Joe Pitka, and he talked about the Pepsi campaign that was loosely tied to the Like a Prayer video, and how that got her into trouble, and how PepsiCo had to deal with it, but the song was popular. And I mean, that's just one song alone. Every song has a story and a history.
So you and her are you're younger than Madonna, but you were
same age. I think I'm 64.
Say what? I think she's almost, I know you're younger than her, because I think she's about to be, I think she's 69, 68, 69.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Just,
Where do I
basically,
sign up? I want to sign up for that.
I saw, she's 6, but Adam said she's 66. I actually saw her in person at a BLM gay pride rally in downtown LA during the summer of George Floyd. And she's next to me. I think she had like a leg injury, but she's literally like 5'2". She's so tiny.
She's tiny.
She's so tiny. And it's just, you're trying to pay attention to what's going on, but it's like you have this icon. For me, for me, and this is like, as I'm born in 79, I was very young during the initial like growth of her. But as when this record came out, it was just like I would say that Madonna is one of the most recognizable names in music. It's like everybody had in the world. So, but
Princess Diana level, Michael Jackson level, like Well, it also, you had a #1 hit every decade. Like,
every decade.
She's still relevant. She's still, first of all, when you're still getting in trouble at 66, that's pretty awesome.
She's actually just going through a breakup now, because they just had, that's what I was Googling her name, and she broke it. She's breaking up with her 28-year-old boyfriend. So good for Madonna, still getting the D, still getting that young. I bet you probably couldn't escape it, when she first came out. But let's take it like from the beginning of this. I want to really, because we don't need to go through the history of every morsel, of she was discovered by this person and that. I feel like this album is going to tell the story of Madonna and then, both of us and growing up. So let's take it right from the top. Was Holiday the first song that you heard from Madonna? And do you remember where you were when you first got introduced to her?
You know what? Actually, Lucky Star was the first one I ever heard. And then I discovered Holiday. And I think I discovered her on MTV. But I also remember loving Desperately Seeking Susan so much that I went to see it 2 separate times in the theater. So I also, by the way, I have a question for you.
Please.
You know what song I can't find anywhere that's maybe my favorite Madonna song? Gambler.
I don't know that one.
From the movie Vision Quest. So it also had the ballad, I'm crazy for you.
Oh, yeah.
An up-tempo song because she plays the girl at the nightclub in a movie about a high school wrestler who's trying to get the tough girl to notice him, not Madonna, a different actress. And she sings a song called Gambler. I'm a gambler. Da, 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 da.
I thought it was you gotta know when to hold up. Know when to fold.
Not the Kenny Rogers version, not the Kenny Rogers version. But anyway, I just didn't know whatever happened to that song. But I also loved that song.
I think if we're getting into favorites right now before we get to this record. My favorite is not on this record. My favorite is Every Little Thing That You Say You'll Do. I'm hung up. I'm like Babu. I love that song.
And
so
the video
much.
Dancing is so intense.
Yeah, she's great. She's in the roller derby.
Level.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think for me, because you're saying you found her through MTV Lucky Star, through MTV, through Lucky Star. So what was it? So was Desperately Seeking Susan during that era? I thought Desperately Seeking Susan was a little later.
After.
Yeah,
it was later, but she wasn't big enough to. Like I said, she did that movie Vision Quest as just random club singing girl. And then Desperately Seeking Susan, she was still, I feel like, pretty new on the scene. And the big question was, can she keep up with acting? Can she keep up with Aidan Quinn, Rosanna Arquette, these folks that are trained actors who happen to be in a movie that also had a music star in it? But I remember when they were making it, it was a big deal because, they're shooting on location in Manhattan on the streets, and they had to deal with the Madonna fan base. So she wasn't as big of a star, of course, as she then became to be. But even then, there was this, can someone from the music world make it in movies? Which we really don't have that question anymore. And she was one of the first that made the crossover, and that movie did really well. It was a really popular rom-com. The part was perfect for her.
She was just cool girl, right? She was just
cool girl, kind of playing herself, kind of not.
The jacket,
sweetness to it, which was good for her at the time. If people thought she was too dangerous, but she was still the naughty girl stealing the jacket, exactly. And I loved that movie, and I loved the whole idea of her going from the 3-minute MTV version to seeing her actually act and play the cool girl.
Yeah, she did do a great job. My sister loved that movie. I remember us renting that. So was it an obsession when you found her? I mean, was it because it's always well, that's what I'm saying.
I'm an Illinoisan and she's a Michigander.
Sure.
And so I know that initially she kind of had a persona with a New York tough talking accent. But when I found out she was from Michigan, I was like, oh yeah, I get it. I get that Midwestern girl that wants to go to one of the coasts to make it. I get that. I was raised in Michigan, but let's face it, if you're going to make it in the music industry, it ain't going to happen in Michigan. Nothing against Michigan. I've played many shows in Michigan. Yeah. I'm just saying, I identified with that I got up and moved because I'm from Oak Park, Illinois, and I really felt strongly that if I wanted to make a living in comedy, I had to be in New York or LA. So I moved to LA. She, of course, famously moved to New York. And, I remember when I think it was MTV used to do stuff where like they would go visit her old apartment and she'd knock on the door and all of a sudden now she's Madonna. And so the person who's lived there is like, yeah, sure, come on in. And it was great watching her story because, as a Midwestern girl, she kind of felt like one of us.
Yeah.
And yet she was one of us that like got out and really got in the game. And then the stuff she was doing, I mean, the Like a Virgin video, people forget how revolutionary that was. I mean, the Catholic Church, I'm a fallen Catholic. The Catholic Church was up in arms. People were archbishops were making statements. There were bans on her. And I, of course, as a fellow rebel, I'm like, I love it. Let's go, Madonna. What's next? And she always had something next.
Yeah. What would you say would be your desperately seeking Susan moment? Like, what was the first thing that you did that really felt like it showcased Kathy?
You know what? I had a reality show called My Life on the D-List.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it. It ran 6 seasons. It won 2 Emmys. It was nominated every year. And I'm proud of it because I love when people come up to me to this day and they'll be like, I remember watching that show. And that's when Bravo had like really real, like my show was not one bit scripted. Like nowadays, reality shows are what they call soft scripted. Let me tell you, a camera crew just followed me around for 6 months a year, if not 8, hoping I would say funny shit. And I was doing live touring at the same time as filming the show and living my life. And sure, I would take specific gigs that I knew would lend themselves more to the theme of being on the D-list, which is where I still happily reside as I bite and scratch my way back from my own
Carnegie Hall.
Hall, baby.
Not the D.
I set a record for the most times a female comedian has played Carnegie.
Good for you. That's awesome. That is awesome, man.
That's one thing that I look at someone like Madonna and I go, she would set records so the younger girls could see. So that's why I brag about it. Like I'm being an asshole.
I'm glad you. No. Brag.
I want the younger girls to know, like when you're a chick comic, you got to work harder and jump higher. Like don't think it's the same as the dudes. It's not.
Sure.
And so, I love what I do, and to be able to do it this long. And I look at Madonna and I look at that energy. And of course, when she was ill, I mean, the nation stood still. The nation stood still. Like,
oh yeah,
I forgot about that. She's in the hospital, and what do you mean it's serious? And she's such a health nut, and if she's not doing yoga, she's doing this. And then she was on Oprah all the time with the latest fitness regime, and now she's not eating this kind of food. So we all did that, and just an example of what it was to be an entertainer that also was an Olympic level athlete for decades.
Yeah. I was looking over her stats of the things that she's done. And I think, I would love to know the timeline of where she was at. And Adam, if you can look it up while I go over this, because like I said, this album's not even 10 years, 7 years into her career. They're already doing a greatest hits, which obviously I don't want to call it a cash grab per se, but she probably had a contract. They probably needed another record. She was working on something.
I went out and got it. I got it the day it came out.
Oh, well, no, dude, I mean, look, this is on the level of Bob Marley legend. This is a record that I don't usually, we've had many times on this podcast out of the, 300 some odd episodes we've done where we've had a greatest hits. We've had like Loretta Lynn's greatest hits, or we've had Merle Haggard's career retrospective. We've done Neil Diamond's career retrospective. Right. This isn't a career retrospective. This is like the Eagles' greatest hits, which was one of the biggest selling records of all time. Way before they still have another, Madonna's still, dude, this is like not even the middle. This is the first third of her career. Yep. This is, I think, the first 4 or 5 records. So
Wait,
What
this
she
is even pre the Ava Peron movie, right?
Yes,
Let me watch.
this came out in 1990. I got it right here. Evita came
Yeah,
out in 96. A League of
right.
Their Own came out in 92. Dick
And by
Tracy
the way,
came out
let's
in
not forget, those also were monumental for her to play the role of Evita. The naysayers were everywhere. And then
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, I think she won the Golden Globe for that. If
she
not,
did.
she
She
was
did. She
definitely
did win the
okay.
Golden Globe. Yeah, I remember
Okay.
that.
Like that is a triumph.
Yeah.
And even A League of Their Own. I I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Deborah Winger actually pulled out of the movie when she found out Madonna was going to be in it because it wasn't really common for a pop star to be in a movie that had serious moments. I mean, we think of A League of Their Own as like kind of a comedy, but it also had serious moments, and Gina Davis and everybody would, but it was the Rosie and Madonna relationship that I think people really talk about the most when we think of League of Their Own. It was so
Yeah.
organic, and they obviously were meant to be buds and had more in common than apart, and yet they couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
And so she was able to jump off the screen in that way, unlike anybody else.
Yeah. So this is where we're at now with her accolades. 300 million records sold worldwide, best-selling female recording artist of all time, most successful solo artist in the history of the USA Billboard Hot 100 chart, has achieved the most #1 singles by a woman in Australia, Canada, Italy, Spain, United Kingdom. Her touring has brought in over $1 billion.
$1 billion.
$1 billion, yeah. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame she's first ballot in 2008. Rolling Stone, MTV, Billboard saying one of the greatest artists, songwriters. Her estimated net worth, which not for nothing, anywhere from 600 million to 800 million. Only recently has she, because she scored 38 top 10 singles on the Hot 100. She held the record among all artists for nearly 2 decades. So between 2002 to 2020, being overtaken by Drake and by Taylor Swift in 2022. And I'm leaving out
them,
I'm leaving out like so much other stuff that we could say about her. And that's why I think this is when you have a record like this on the podcast that you're like, okay, it's a greatest hits. This record stands on its own. They threw the 2 extra songs on at the end, which they do. It's Justify My Love.
And Rescue Me.
And Rescue Me, which I don't remember Rescue Me.
Just like that rap, like Rescue Me. I know. Okay. What I love about the Immaculate Collection too is it's the kind of album that, like, if we had the old days of turntables or DVD or discs or whatever, like you could put just this album on for a whole party and nobody would notice it was only Madonna songs, because the variety of one from Papa Don't Preach. First of all, Live to Tell and Papa Don't Preach are so different, and they came out at around the same time.
Yeah.
La Isla Bonita, everybody knows. That's kind of one of those, like, everybody can love that song. There's nothing controversial about it. Then the wham bam of Holiday, Lucky Star, Borderline, Like a Virgin. Then we get into Material Girl. Then we get into the Sean Penn era, and everybody knows the story that he was visiting the set, and then he wanted to meet her, and he had a truck that he was driving. Like, I can even tell you, back in the day, my mom and dad, I'm from Illinois, so my whole family is starstruck. One time, my mom and dad saw Sean and Madonna together at a park here in Los Angeles called Palisades Park.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw them, and they said it was a matter of minutes before they had to just pack up and leave, because there's so many paparazzi and people just at the very sight of these two people who are either married already or going to get married, just like a regular couple with a picnic blanket and a basket of food, and thinking, okay, we're just going to take an hour and sit here and look at the ocean. And my parents said minutes later, it was like blanket up, in the car, gone. And my mom said it was so scary watching their vehicle be followed by the paparazzi.
Oh, Lady Diana. Imagine. Yeah.
I know.
I mean, but they were, that was, that was, one of the hottest young actors. He's just coming off of Fast Times, and then he's really starting to build, as becoming he's not, I'm gonna call him, I never call him really like a sex symbol, but he's this cool. He's like the Johnny Depp. He's the man. He's the Marlon Brando, and she
winner,
is
legit and talent for days. And by the way, the movie At Close Range, which she wrote Live to Tell for, that's a great movie. I rewatched it recently. It's with Christopher Walken and Sean Penn. Man, that's a good movie. So he was filming that when they were together, and then she, of course, wrote the song, and it comes on at the end, but they play it throughout the movie. So yeah, that was a relationship that we all, for some reason, felt like was our business, and we were all invested in.
It was a lot. But yeah, you mentioned already, like Holiday. This is her first single. It's off of the first record. She says it's one of her favorites. This song she's performed the most often at concerts. Didn't really hit number one.
Which is kind of crazy because it's such the feel good song. Like, it's just non-controversial, gets you up and dancing, can be played at any club or party.
I think Lucky Star is the very whereas Holiday doesn't have it doesn't, I don't want to sit here and say it has an 80s feel. Look, Lucky Star really has, in my opinion, that like 80s dance. This was what I'm saying. She made this song for $14,000.
Not today, she wouldn't.
No, not she would. She really, hold on. So what I'm just saying, so Madonna didn't want to release this song around the same time she was getting sued and needed money. She said, all right, let's release Lucky Star. And then she released it. And that was the first thing to really break the album wide open. Borderline's the one I want to talk to. This is why I want to talk about this. But this is
that song.
Borderline. Yeah. Borderline is a track from her debut record written by her producer, Reggie Lucas. Great example of a writer tailoring a song for a specific artist. Few would guess that the song was written by a man, but it was. Lucas got a sense of what Madonna was all about by listening to her demo tapes, watching her perform. He wrote the song. What I wanted to talk about, I want to talk about the word borderline. Now, Madonna has always seemed to court controversy, but like I said earlier, it's always on her own terms. Everything she's doing is planned, thought of, and if the press is going to talk about it, she's making sure that she's the one. It's like she did this thing,
like the sex book.
Yes,
she put the sex book out herself. She had her Brits or whoever was her favorite photographer take the naked pictures of her, the famous one of her naked hitchhiking on the street.
Oh yeah, gosh, she looks great.
She's like, so you know, they're going to just stalk me and eventually catch me naked. I might as well put out a sex book. So she was living on the borderline always.
So she knew where that borderline was. Now, you mentioned it earlier, but I don't want to just specifically talk about that. But you've had controversy thrust upon you. You never want to shy away from it.
But government.
Yeah. So, and a lot of comics, we have to know where this line is that you can cross or not. Prior to the Trump picture, did you ever feel like you were flirting with that line, like almost courting controversy?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, look, that's what I do. Is I really made a name for myself calling out celebrities. And when I started working on television, then my act went from me telling about like bad date stories or whatever kind of normal stand-up would be to me taking you inside backstage. I was on that show, Suddenly Susan, with Brooke Shields. She was married to tennis giant Andre Agassi. He was so famous at the time, right? And so they caused a frenzy as a couple. And so I would talk about that. And then I talked about people that would come and visit the set. And that show had a bunch of, crazy guest stars. I mean, the great Joan Rivers played my mom for several episodes on that show. So I would talk about Joan backstage and the stuff we'd goof around. And Joan and I would get in trouble and we'd try to torture Brooke and Brooke would laugh. And, so that totally changed the course of the kind of material. And then probably my first sort of real controversy, I didn't really care about. When I won my first Emmy, I thought, you know what? These Emmys are important to me, and I think they're prestigious and amazing for just a kid from Illinois. But, people forget awfully fast. And if I'm ever lucky enough to win one, I better say something really outrageous so people know I won an Emmy. So I find it humorous when like rappers go and win an award and they thank Jesus as if that's what God is doing. If you believe there's a God, that they're picking out like who gets a Grammy or an American Music Award.
Yeah.
So I went up there and I said, you know, a lot of people come up here and they thank Jesus for these awards. I want you to know Jesus had nothing to do with me winning this. In fact, if it were up to Jesus, he probably would have given it to Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer. So I say, fuck you, Jesus. This award is my God now. Okay.
wait for a second. Wait, I think it's great. I think it's great.
Making fun of. I thought everybody's going to get the joke because everybody has seen the speech where the person thanks the Holy Ghost and Jesus and the blah blah blah. And well, the cheese stands alone. Turns out that while I thought it was very funny and my friends did, then the phone started ringing from the lawyers. And it was the Television Academy is demanding an apology. And I said no. The Academy wants their Emmy back. I said no. And so then I'm not saying I, you know, specifically thought only of her, but I do look to someone like Madonna to go, no, I'm not giving back my Emmy because you think my joke went too far. Like, it was a harmless joke. This was not a joke that hurt anybody or hurt a group of people that are in danger of any kind. This is a freaky Emmy. Lighten up, everybody. It's, you know, it's not, we're not at NASA. We're not, you know, curing cancer here. We're giving out awards for TV shows. And so that was kind of my first bite of the cancellation. I was canceled before cancellation was cool, baby. And I will say though, that experience, maybe it was a double-edged sword because it did kind of teach me to never back down. And I will say my only regret with the whole Trump head photo scandal is that the day afterwards, I did apologize. And now I look back at that, I'm like, ugh, why did I cave to like people calling me saying, American service members are going to be beheaded in your name, and you're the new face of ISIS, and ISIS is going to use your picture and say, this is for Kathy Griffin. Like, I now think back about that and go, what kind of bullshit was that? Like,
yeah, dude.
What are you talking about? I'm on the D list. I took a picture. You know, it freaked out Donald Trump, who I've known for 25 years. I mean, he's hired me twice to roast him. Like, he knows me. I don't like him, but I mean, I've certainly seen him at many charity events. You'll see me photographed with him. He was very ubiquitous in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when that whole thing went down, that's my only regret is I do take back the apology.
Sure.
And
but
I think Madonna has turned into an art form is not apologizing.
But I can imagine just how scary that is. And from my understanding, like I said, it wasn't really planned. You were just doing a photo shoot and then the head was there and you were like, oh, let's fucking, I
was like, let's do something about Trump. And I sent my assistant out for a Halloween mask and it kept folding. So I put one of my wig heads behind it and they photoshopped out the bottom. And I took other pictures that day that were totally different topics. I think I did one picture where I was spoofing Kim Kardashian because I lived next door to her at the time. And that was a comedy dream come true. And I think I took one picture as like a 50s housewife. But I mean, I was just in between gigs and I thought, oh, I'll take some fun pictures that are outrageous and they'll be on like a gay blog for 2 days. Sure. Well, I underestimated that one. Sure. And I paid the price, but I do regret the apology.
No, I get it. And look, you know, you did what you thought was best at the moment, because I can imagine how scary that could be, because, you know, both sides, both far right, both far left are the scariest of the scary. And,
right,
you know, right. They always look for people that want to make fun of people that get offended. They get offended.
Yeah, and I wasn't working with a studio at the time. I didn't have a network backing me up. Like, I didn't have that kind of infrastructure like the guys who have late night talk shows and stuff like that. But, you know, I do look back on it and I do have to say, I'm actually not anti-government at all. In fact, the FBI was coming to my house about twice a week for a while to tell me about credible threats to my life. And so I actually credit the FBI for saving my life, because there were many times when they would have to come over and they give you a letter called a duty to warn, and it proves that they came over and they told you about what they deemed to be a credible threat, as opposed to non-credible threats, or as I call them, incredible threats. And so it was very complicated and it went on for a long time. But no, I'm not anti-government in any way. I'm just a normal Democrat. I don't like Trump. He knows it, but I won't do any more head pictures.
I think we were supposed to actually, one of the options for us to record this episode, I think, was either election day or the day after. And I was like, let's not. Let's just
pause on that one.
Pause for a moment and see how this goes. And I mean, we could sit here and talk about what went right and what went wrong, but it's, you know.
We know Madonna's not very happy about the results as well. We know her well enough to know she definitely is not a Trumper, and it's okay to not be a Trumper.
No, it sucks that it's so divisive. Yeah, that more, and I don't think it's I don't know, because I've only been alive since 79, but in my lifetime it's never been this way.
Never.
And I genuinely, here's the deal, is I hate to say it, I don't think it's ever going to go back. I think the worm is out of the can, and it's going to be attacking moving forward.
I hate that. That is so not who we are. That's not who we're supposed to be. And it's so embarrassing to other countries. Like when I went to Australia with Sia, who's Australian, and the minute they hear my accent, they just go, "What are you guys doing? What are you doing? Why can't you get it together?" And I'm just like, I know. We're going through a rough patch. We're trying to get back on track. But yeah, I've never seen it this divided in my lifetime either.
Somebody will come out of the woodwork and bring it together. And it could, it could be a middle of the road Republican. You never know. It could be
I'm open to sanity. I just want some sanity.
Yeah, and we will. I just got to hope for the best. All right. That being said, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about Like a Virgin, because I was talking to my buddy.
Okay.
And I always thought, my buddy Morty, he was the guy that helps me write this. I always thought that Like a Virgin was the moment, was her breakout. I had no idea that there were 3 other hits prior to Like a Virgin. And he had explained the Like a Virgin album as a way, almost like the way that U2 was big, but your parents didn't know who they were until the Joshua Tree came out, and then everybody knew them. And Madonna, this was like her Joshua Tree, which by the way, this is her 2nd album. So most people come out with a big record and they get the sophomore slump. Madonna has her best record. Even Prince, it took 3 records before Prince did Dirty Minds, which really is the one that made him Prince. And Madonna's coming out, and with this song that I think it's Nile Rodgers produced it. So you have one of the biggest, disco producers and probably and still making incredible music with what he did with Daft Punk. But this is the quintessential, in my opinion, Madonna song, because of the song sounds like her and it sounds great. The subject material with the word like a virgin, and like is doing a lot of heavy lifting in there, because you all know Madonna be fucking. But then also the famous, was it the MTV Music Awards?
The VMA. Well, first of all, the video was already famous because it was her in Venice, Italy, on the boat. And then when she did the VMAs, literally rolling around in a wedding dress, never looking hotter, looking sexy, but approachable. She was the girl you wanted to be. And if you're a guy, the girl you wanted to sleep with. And rolling around fearlessly singing this song that, it was like you were watching her kind of roll around in bed with a guy. You know what I mean? Like she brought it all together. And also just the timing. I mean, that's why she got one of the, MTV Lifetime Achievement Awards, because she was so integral to that channel becoming, for a while, I think, a really great channel. I mean, before they turned into whatever they are now, MTV, I feel like they've just given up now. But I can just tell you, as a comic, I used to take every offer on MTV, whether it was be a judge on Say What karaoke, go on TRL, like no matter what, when MTV called, I went, because I knew it would expose me to a whole new audience, a younger audience, an audience that was probably comedically kind of unshockable, which is good for me. And it was such an event. The VMAs were almost like in a contest with themselves to outdo each other. And I don't know if Joel Gallen was producing that year, but I know he cut his teeth on the VMAs. Troy Miller is a great director who did a lot of stuff at the VMAs. And they threw in a lot of comedy eventually because they saw the broad audience that it had. But that performance is iconic for a reason. There's something about just seeing our girl Madonna rolling around on the floor in a wedding dress while singing about virginity that just made our heads explode. And we all remember it to this day.
Yeah, I love that you brought up Joel. Joel Gallen, he actually was the showrunner on my TV show. And there was a lot of like, I think he was one of the first few people that directed the MTV Unplugged too. MTV was
It was
I mean, it was so good. It was so important.
Like, it was important because it gave you shows like Unplugged, like it gave you a history lesson about pop music and legitimized pop music and rock and roll, of course, and rap, but really showed us a lot of artists and their process. And we became friends. Like, we feel like we know Madonna. We feel like she's our super popular cousin or whatever.
Yeah,
but you grow with them. You go through the ups and the downs, and all those shows were so important. Must see.
They are also, you were talking about important. They create, in a sense, created reality television with the Real World, but then ipso facto have ruined it. Yeah, but then they've also ruined it and taken it to the nth, and just which is unfortunate because it really was this incredible thing. This song, this is her biggest selling album of her life. It sold more than 25 million copies. Wow. I mean, I think the scene from Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs is to be able to start a movie and almost introduce your career, like your filmmaking. Right. You cut your teeth with, that's the opening scene. And I think it was one of the coolest discussions, Quentin Tarantino obviously is one of the only few directors that can make dialogue as entertaining as any kind of action. And for it to be about Madonna, it's so great. I wanted to ask you, because this song is about, this is first about innocence, and this isn't about sex. I don't want to talk about sex, but I wanted to ask you, when did you lose your innocence? Like, when you found out that the world is, it's the world wants to ruin us. Because when you're a kid, it's just, oh, this is all great. And then you finally see the hypocrisy of the world, and it turns, and how cruel things can be. When did you lose that?
Probably, like, this is going to be a standard actor answer, but like probably dealing with the level of rejection that you get as a regular working stiff actor before you finally get a gig. Like someone said in commercials, and I did a ton of commercials at the beginning of my career, and I loved doing every one of them. And someone said the average audition time is 70 auditions before you book a commercial, 70 more before you get your second one. I don't know if it worked out exactly that way for me, but
there's a lot
of rejection, and you just have to take it on the chin. And in fact, you have to take it as a learning tool. And I read a great Al Pacino quote, and I don't know him, but he said he looked forward to every audition instead of dreading it, because he saw it as the only opportunity to actually work and perform for someone. And I thought, okay, what if I think of these auditions as like non-paying gigs? I mean, at the time, I just did another movie for free. Like I'm the queen of like the student film, the independent film that's looking for funding, and so you have to resign yourself to a lot of working for free, I think, if you want to be an actor or comic or whatever. And so that's probably what made me lose my virginity. It was just the amount of hearing the word no.
Yeah. That'll break you, dude. That's the beautiful thing about, it's like if you quit, you're never going to be able to find out if you can make it. So it's just,
you weren't meant to do it. Like I tell people that all the time, like that want to be famous. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about wanting to be famous. I know about wanting to be a working comic, but if you want to be famous, I can't help you. You have to actually be good, and you have to just keep doing it with all the rejection, and you have to learn from the rejection while you're crying.
I want to talk about something that wasn't a rejection. I know it's not really off topic. Well, I guess it's off topic, but I don't give a shit because I'm very, very curious. Is like, like the Seinfeld, like when you got Seinfeld, you had already been, I'm assuming, been doing that show. You had already been, because you had said that earlier where you was like talking about like the gossip.
Yeah.
Like you did it. There, so many people have done it since you, and I don't think anybody's done it as good as you. Whose idea was that? Were they looking for that character, or did Jerry or Larry see you and go, we need to put her in and add her into the episode? I'm just so curious because I've been rewatching Seinfeld. Yeah.
No, it's amazing. They wrote it for me and thank you for saying that, because Chris Rock said, I'm going to brag again. He said the nicest thing. He said, Kathy Griffin has changed the game more than anybody in stand-up in 25 years, because she was the first one to tell celebrity run-in stories, and now everybody's got one. Yeah. And he's like, Kathy Griffin, and so when I did my first episode of Seinfeld, I thought Jerry was kind of an asshole, and I wanted him to sign something for me. And I was there all week, and he just wouldn't. Like, it would have taken him 4 seconds, and he wouldn't do it. So I then get my first stand-up special at HBO half hour, when HBO, which is now Max, but when HBO used to make or break stars, like that was such a big deal to get an HBO stand-up special. So I just did what I was doing in my live act, which is I told a story about being on Seinfeld and how surprising it was to me that Jerry was really kind of an asshole and why. And the audience laughed at my little version of it. I made fun of myself, of course. And then I said to Larry David at the time, I said, if Jerry ever sees this, I'll die. And he said, Jerry will never see your HBO special. He works 14 hours a day on the show. He couldn't care less about other comics. He'll never see it. Okay, so sure enough, I get a call, and they've written an episode where my character, for no reason, becomes a stand-up comedian whose only topic is making fun of Jerry. So they wrote the episode for me. I was on that show, Suddenly Susan, at the time, which was on at 8, and Seinfeld was on at 8:30. Mm-hmm. I had to beg Suddenly Susan. In fact, the Seinfeld show had to beg Warner Brothers and Suddenly Susan to let me go at the night after Suddenly Susan, go do Seinfeld. And Seinfeld, they would stay late for me to tape with me. And it was iconic being there, because when I got to do my second episode, Jerry Seinfeld as the devil, it was when Jerry had just announced he was quitting the show, and he was on the cover of Time. So it was like iconic to be there the first time.
Sure.
When I was like a little gnat on his shoulder. He didn't notice me. Then, of course, he does see the special where I trashed him. I really fucking went for him. And then, thank God, he's a big enough star to actually have a sense of humor about it, which has almost never happened since. Like, most of these A-listers they don't really take it on the chin very well. No. And so I was so thrilled. He wrote me a really funny letter about how meaningless I am that I have framed in my bathroom. And then they wrote the episode. And then, I got the honor of walking onto the set for a second time after I talked shit about him. And I walk into the diner set, and nobody's there but Jerry, and the stage is dark. And I just hear Jerry go, well, well, well. Yeah, look what the cat dragged in. And I said, you're still here? And so I got to do the second episode, and it was such an honor. And that cast just worked their butts off. And it was really iconic to be there every minute.
I love it. It's one of my favorite, being a part of arguably the biggest show of my lifetime, but just to
Yeah.
have that's so cool that they wrote that for
Oh my God.
you.
I
And
couldn't believe
yeah,
it. I couldn't
that's
believe it.
awesome. Well, you're doing you. You were being you. And
I was.
that's what's great. And now another thing, when you're talking about success,
Yeah.
Material Girl. What was that like seeing Material Girl when that had come out? And because now
Well,
you're
that
getting
was very controversial because it was at a time when
yeah.
if you were a feminist, you weren't supposed to be materialistic. So there was a big pop culture argument. Once again, Madonna in trouble because, wait a minute, we thought you were this feminist. Now you're dressed up as Marilyn Monroe, who typically played a dumb blonde,
Yeah.
and you're talking about all you want and it's diamonds and all the shallow stuff. So then she's going around doing interviews going, no, I'm spoofing the notion of being materialistic. But like I said, by then, frankly, we had moved on to the fascination of her relationship with Sean. And so those two worlds kind of collided at the same time. But once again, as she does, she made herself center of the conversation worldwide.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. This is her third look. Do you know what I mean? Like Holiday Lucky Star Borderline. I'm assuming that's like the same thing. Like that's the Desperately Seeking Susan.
Yeah.
Like a Version, I
Still
guess, is
rough
still
around
that.
the edges. Now she's getting smoother and
Yeah,
glamour, full
yeah.
Hollywood glam.
Full Hollywood glam. She looks. I mean, she's got the bleach. Is this the
Right.
Who's That Girl era? The bleach blonde hair
Yes.
and
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So now, I mean, now she's changing. Now women are like you just said. It was like it was like
Everyone's
bad to
dyeing
be
their hair. So first we all
everybody.
had the crinolines with the tights that were cut off, and
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
our bow like up here. Now everybody's dyeing their hair platinum, beyond platinum white, but you want a little bit of the roots to show because that's how Madonna did it.
Oh my
And then
God, she's me right now. I'm Material Girl
right?
Madonna.
You have a pixie. You have what we
Roots
call a
showing.
pixie.
I
Yep.
love it.
Yep.
I want to talk about Material.
Okay.
When you start getting successful, what's the dumbest thing you've ever bought, or what's the first thing? Let's start there. Well, you get money, you get the big contract, or what? You finally book something, you can afford shit. What was the first thing that you bought?
I mean, the stuff that really the stuff that was important to me was taking care of my parents. So I got them a condo and a new car. And I was like, okay, that's important because they can't be driving around in the Toyota Corolla that had 118,000 miles on it. Which, by the way, they sold to me. I want you to know they did not give me that car. They sold it to me, but it was a very fair price. I'm just saying the mileage was a little high. All right. So that stuff was important. And then I wanted to buy a house, and I was always convinced that every job I had would be my last job. So I was really good at saving money. I still am to this day. And I always tell anybody coming up, sock your money away. You don't have to be the Kardashians where you're buying a Lamborghini and you're showing off your jewelry. It's more important to have security. And so I became friends with Susie Orman, who, remember, she used to have that show, the Susie Orman Show. Boyfriend, you can't afford that boat, you're denied. And she would be talking to people about what they could really afford or not. And I got to meet her, and she said, would you feel better if your house was paid for outright, or do you like keeping the mortgage? And I said, well, my money manager says the mortgage is a tax write-off. And she said, but what makes you feel more secure? And I said, well, I'd rather own the house outright because after selling Susan, I may never work again. So that's when I started really trying to sock away as much as possible. And every house that I've had since, I bought it cash because she convinced me if you can't buy a house cash, you can't really afford it. I don't care what they tell you about 10% down or 20% down or whatever the interest rate is. If you can't buy it cash, you can't afford it. Now, I know that's not for everybody, and it sounds very elitist, etc. I'm just saying, take it from me, a 64-year-old woman who people made fun of because I was socking all my money away or called me cheap or whatever. But when that Trump photo happened, remember, I had no income, no health insurance, nothing for 7 years. How many people to go from being cut off from any income for 7 years and still be okay. And so when I say to younger people, it is cool to sock your money away, it is trendy as shit to actually have money in the bank. Take it from somebody who's saved for a rainy day. Because, honey, it was a
rainy day coming.
storm. It was a flood of not working and not having any money coming in. So that's one thing that I do talk about openly is it's okay to be a saver.
It is okay to be a saver, but what's the thing though? What's the one thing that you were like, I shouldn't get it, but I'm getting it? A house I get. Your parents I get. Give me one. What was it?
My Maz.
Maserati. There it is. There it is. Or Miata? No, I'm kidding.
A fucking Maserati in your face. I love that car. If I could have fucked that car, I would. I love that car more than a person. I love that car more than my family. I love that Maserati.
I love that you love it because it's a beautiful car. But
now I have a fully electric Porsche Taycan.
Do you? Oh, that's
the gas station again.
I had the last car I had before I moved to New York because I didn't need my car out here. I had the Porsche Macan S, and I loved that car so much. I loved it. I hope Porsches I think are the sexiest cars ever, and it's like dude, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
I love driving it.
Yeah, I do miss driving, and when I do rent cars, I get President Circle, but I found that if you just tip the guy $20, they'll get you a better car. So awesome. I usually get good Cadillacs. Yeah, good. Not the best, but still good. All right, what do you want to talk about? We got Crazy for You. You mentioned that earlier. That's I
mean, let's talk about Vogue because
you want to jump to Vogue? Okay.
Yeah, because look, I'm a big A in the LGBTQ, a big ally in the community, and Madonna obviously is. But the thing that was so significant about Vogue is, there's a movie called Paris is Burning about those Vogue kids and that quote, underground subculture of these kids that were often unhoused, and they found community within each other and invented a dance style called voguing. And then the fact that Madonna put the spotlight on them, took some of them on tour with her at the Blonde Ambition tour, is really putting her money where her mouth is. So she looked at every part of the gay community and somehow discovered these kids. I mean, they seem like kids to me now, and how incredibly talented they were doing something we had not seen before. And that's probably Madonna's brand, if it's anything, is bringing us something that we had just never quite seen it like that before. And next thing you know, every party you go to, somebody's voguing, then we all try to vogue. It's embarrassing when the white people do it, but we try anyway. But man, I still think of that tour and all the dancing and all the voguing and taking those kids with her and that video and the iconic sound of that snap that just starts the song. Talk about name that tune in 1 second.
Yeah, Vogue out of everything on this record, it might be one of my favorite songs on there. This is also, we were talking about this because this is like 4 or 5 things we could talk about right now. What I'm about to say is this is the era where music videos are also cologne and perfume commercials. Do you know, it's Freedom 90. Very like George Michael. Let's get the most beautiful people together. Let's put a really great lighting. Get the hip director David Fincher or this guy or that guy. I can't think. But Justify My Love, Vogue. I mean, Christ, Express Yourself. Yep. Even Like a Prayer, which you had mentioned earlier, was the Pepsi commercial, right?
Yeah.
It was.
It was.
But Vogue is like. It was Madonna's. It was the way that Freedom 90 is to George Michael. She did something, I think, with, and this is like probably one of my favorite eras of Madonna, which is that, this is right before the Sex Book, I think, right? Yeah. Is it Justify My?
Really showcasing her as a dancer because she's always been a dancing and singing artist, but this kind of dancing is so difficult and looked difficult. You know, like they go, oh, so and so made it look easy. It never looked easy. And for her to keep up with those kids and those kids to keep up with her, and then have the backup singers doing it with her, like it was just, it all just came together. And I believe it was Jean-Paul Gaultier with the cone breast, you know, tops that she was wearing. Like I can still see her in that suit, voguing in the hair.
That's the cone titties, right?
Yep.
That's the pointies, right? Okay, yeah. See, that's
real
like
real pointy.
The real pointies.
Right.
This is I love Vogue. Justify My Love, the music video was fine. It was very sexual. That was also the one song on the record that, you know, this one and Rescue Me are the two new songs. I think Rescue Me is a much better song because it's actually a song. Justify My Love this is just like spoken word.
It's like a vibe, yeah.
You can fuck to it for sure. I mean, I bet you a lot of people had sex to Justify My Love.
A lot of people, probably Lenny Kravitz himself, probably.
Which he helped her write that. Yeah. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, dude. I would love to see her like body list. I bet you it is.
I love it. I hope it's a nice high count. I hope it is. In my imagination, it is. I want it to be. You know, I'm sure it is. It's got to be.
I want to be. You have to get out of here soon. I don't want to keep you too long.
No, I do.
Okay, so here I want to do one more song because I wanted to ask you. I wanted to say "Papa Don't Preach." I wanted to mention that, which is a big song. I know you loved your parents so much, and I think, you know, I know you've lost both of them. So I just wanted to ask you, what was the best advice you had ever gotten from them?
I think, well, I mean, sorry to go back to the financial thing, but my mom and dad were depression parents. And so my mom would always say, use it up, wear it out, make it do. And I think that advice really sunk in because I could balance a checkbook when I was 10. Like I didn't even have one, but my mom would sit me down and say, you're going to learn how to do a budget. And that just piece of advice coming from these two people that had gone through the actual depression, you know, it made an impression on me that I obviously still have to this day. So just what we would call it Midwestern common sense, like that was their expression. And that's why, like I said, I loved learning that Madonna's a Michigander because I was like, aha, Midwestern common sense. You can't escape it if you're one of us. And so I think in the Midwest, we kind of feel a little bit territorial with Madonna because we feel like she's one of us.
No, I love that. And I think it's a perfect way to end before we go into our final questions. And like I said, I appreciate you coming on. I wish we could do more time, but I get it. So I'm going to ask you the finals, and we'll have you back, by the way. We'll definitely have you back. We have so many more records that I think that would be right up your alley. All right. Good. This isn't one of the normal questions I ask, but I wanted to ask you, what is out of all of the Madonna eras, all of them?
Yeah.
So from the start all the way to her now with, you know, I don't know what you'd call it, like a Captain Crunch kind of outfitty with almost what is your favorite era of Madonna?
Okay. It's hard to pick an era because there's like certain songs. If I was hard pressed to pick an actual song, I think it might be Live to Tell. Because it was unexpected. She wasn't really doing a lot of ballads at that time. I remember Rosie O'Donnell telling me one time, because I'm still good friends with Rosie, I see her all the time, and Rosie telling me during that era that people underestimated Madonna's sort of musicality, and that she went into the studio with Madonna one time and there was a full orchestra. And she talked about how Madonna could say, hey, fourth violin, you're off on this note. And there's something about the song Live to Tell that I don't want to say it's underrated because I love that she's doing it on the current tour, but maybe that's my favorite song. And I like to picture her in this studio with a full orchestra in command of it, knowing exactly who is doing what in the face of the media kind of trying to underestimate her. So I guess that's maybe my favorite era.
That's actually answers the. Is that your favorite song on this record?
It's my favorite song on the
Okay.
record, but my
So
gosh, there's so many good ones to choose from. I mean, Express Yourself is an anthem.
I
It's
know.
an
I
anthem.
know it's I mean, this is a hard record to say what your favorite. I think mine is definitely probably Vogue. What I meant when I was saying favorite era of her, I meant not music. I meant her look. What's your favorite look of hers? Because
I mean,
I love Ray of Light, that natural when she's getting into her,
oh
like I think she's just
yeah,
about to be 50 or she's like late 40s.
yeah,
She glowed. She was so
yep.
beautiful. That's what
And
upsets
like
me.
the don't
Yeah.
tell
Oh,
me,
dude,
like the hair,
dude,
beautiful long hair,
dude.
low rise pants, cowboy hat, yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful era where you feel like you kind of got to see the real Madonna because it
Yeah.
wasn't so with wacky makeup and pixie haircuts and different color and stuff. So yeah, that's definitely a really beautiful era because you get to see her in a more natural way and you feel like you
Yeah.
get to see her a little bit more.
She's so beautiful and so many other when she was younger and even now, I mean, but it's just there's something about her aging gracefully at that
Yeah.
time that was just incredible. All right, you
Yep.
already said favorite song, and I know we got to get you. So I got two more questions. Is there anything on this record that you skip over?
Let me see. Uh Gosh. I mean, I okay, if I skipped over any of them, it's only because maybe
You heard him too
they're
much?
overplayed. Yes, like I might skip over Holiday because I've heard it so much. I might skip over, you know, I might skip over Cherish because I've
Yeah.
heard it so many times, but
Yeah.
none of them was like they turn me off. It's just kind
I
of like,
get it.
all right, this one might be a little overplayed.
I get it. I get it. All right. The next question. From starting this album, right at track number 1, can you fuck to this record?
I can fuck to really anything. I can definitely fuck to this record. And
Yeah.
I would say Justify My Love. I know it's obvious, but I'd probably
Sure.
start with that one. Papa Don't Preach, I would not. I would
Yeah.
turn that off. That's not, but I would totally fuck to La Isla Bonita,
Yeah.
hopefully with a Spanish speaking gentleman.
Oh, there it
Um,
is.
Definitely Like a Virgin, because and Open Your Heart's probably too sweet. And Vogue for sure because it has the beat. And I would fuck to Rescue Me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be rescued in that
I
way.
think you can. I think you can. I think it's like there are some ones that may not fly, but the majority of them are very
Well,
sexy.
majority of you can count on.
What would be your elevator pitch to get someone to listen to this record?
I would say I have a record for you that spans eras and encapsulates what was happening in the pop culture as well as the political and artistic landscape in several eras in one record.
I love that. I really do think,
Come on. I should be your
I
manager. Come on.
I
What's
I
going
mean,
on?
listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. One, I want to be included in a Sharon Stone text thread. So
Okay.
please. And two, I don't think you could have summed that up any better. I think we're talking about a global, beyond global superstar that
Yeah.
hasn't had many missteps. It's all
Right.
been she set the line and she walked
Right.
it, and I think musically and just stylistically everything about her. I'm actually upset that I didn't get to go see her on tour because I was on tour. But I'm so glad to have you come on and talk about her today,
Oh,
Kathy.
thanks.
It was what a everybody that I heard how great you were, you lived up to it 100%. And I'd love to have you
Oh,
back on. So please,
all
one more
right.
time, promote away one more time. We'll
Okay,
promote at
good.
the beginning.
Please come see me on tour after a 7-year forced absence by the federal government. Please give me a chance. Come see Kathy Griffin, My Life on the PTSD list. I'm about 50 cities in, but I've got 25 cities left. I am definitely coming to your town, and I'll be at a nice theater, and let me make you laugh for a couple of hours. It'll be my pleasure.